Discovery of the dying protectors. The signal that changed everything. Captain Elena Rodriguez stared at the holographic display floating above her command table. The readings made no sense. For 3 days, the UES Pathfinder had been tracking an energy signature unlike anything in human records. It pulsed with a rhythm that seemed almost alive, calling out from the depths of the Arcturus system. "Captain, the energy patterns are getting stronger," reported Dr. Marcus Chen from his station. The xenobiologist had joined this deep space mission hoping to find new forms of life, but what they were seeing exceeded his wildest theories. The source appears to be artificial, but the complexity suggests a technology far beyond our current understanding. Elena walked to the main viewport and gazed at the distant star system. Something was out there, something that had been sending signals into the void for who knew how long. As captain of humanity's most advanced exploration vessel, she had a duty to investigate. But as a mother of twin daughters back on Earth, she also had a duty to keep her crew safe. "Commander Vale, what's our tactical assessment?" Elena asked, turning to her military advisor. Commander Sarah Vale looked up from her analysis. "The signals don't match any known weapon signatures, but we're operating in uncharted territory. Whatever's generating this energy has power output levels that dwarf our entire fleet combined. I recommend extreme caution." Elena nodded. The Pathfinder had been exploring the outer rim for 6 months, mapping new systems and searching for habitable worlds. They were 3 weeks from the nearest human outpost, alone in the vast darkness between stars. If something went wrong, help would not arrive in time. "Set course for the signal source," Elena commanded, "but keep our defensive systems ready. If this is first contact, we need to make sure it's not our last." Journey into the unknown. 2 days later, the Pathfinder approached the 4th planet of the Arcturus system. What they found defied explanation. The world glowed with an inner light, its surface covered in towering crystalline structures that reached toward the stars. Energy flowed between the crystal spires like liquid lightning, creating patterns of incredible beauty. "My God," whispered Dr. Chen. "The entire planet is one massive organism." "No, not organism. It's like a living city. The crystals are conducting energy in ways our physics can barely explain." As they entered orbit, the energy signals suddenly focused on their ship. The bridge filled with a soft, harmonic sound that seemed to resonate in their bones. Then, impossibly, a voice spoke directly into their minds. It was not heard through their ears, but felt in their thoughts. "Welcome, travelers from distant stars. We have waited long for others to find us." The crew exchanged startled glances. Telepathic communication was theoretical in human science, but here it was happening. Elena steadied herself and fought back, trying to project her response. "We are humans from Earth. We received your signals. Who are you?" Images flooded their minds then. Visions of a galaxy-spanning civilization, beings of living crystal who had once governed hundreds of worlds. They saw great ships sailing between stars, carrying knowledge and peace to younger races. They were called the Zilani, and they had been the guardians of this sector of space for over 50,000 years. "I am Elder Thyros," the voice continued, now carrying deep sadness. "I am the last leader of my people. We are dying, and with us dies the protection we have provided for countless millennia. The weight of ancient sacrifice." Elena authorized a landing party. The shuttle descended through layers of energy that danced across their hull without harm. As they touched down near the largest cluster of crystal towers, the very ground hummed with power. The air was breathable, but charged with static that made their skin tingle. Elder Thyros emerged from the crystal city to greet them. He stood nearly 9 feet tall, his body translucent and shot through with veins of flowing light. His movements were graceful but weary, like someone carrying an enormous burden for far too long. Despite his alien appearance, his eyes held unmistakable intelligence and kindness. "Your species is young," Thyros observed, his mental voice carrying notes of wonder. You have spread to barely a dozen worlds, yet you dare to travel so far from home. There is courage in you that reminds me of my people in better times. Dr. Chen stepped forward, his scientific curiosity overcoming his caution. Elder Thyros, our scans show your planet's energy output is decreasing. Are your people ill? The crystal being's light dimmed noticeably. Not ill, young scientist. We are simply ending. For 3,000 of your years, we have fought a war against an enemy that devours life itself. Each battle costs us more than the last. Now, only 300 of us remain from a population that once numbered in the billions. Commander Vale's military instincts engage. What enemy could wage war for 3,000 years? Thyros gestured toward the stars, and suddenly their minds were filled with horrifying images. They saw creatures of living shadow moving between worlds, draining the life from everything they touched. Planets withered and died as these entities fed on the very essence of existence. Star systems went dark as their suns were consumed from within. They are called the Void Swarm, Thyros explained. They are not truly alive as you understand life. They are hunger given form, consumption made manifest. They spread from system to system, leaving only dead worlds in their wake. Elena felt a chill of recognition. How close are they to human space? Closer than you know, Thyros replied grimly. They have been moving steadily toward your region of the galaxy. Your Earth lies directly in their path. We estimate they will reach your worlds within 5 of your years. The Guardian's sacrifice. The revelation hit the human team like a physical blow. Everything they had worked for, everyone they loved, was in mortal danger from an enemy they had never known existed. Dr. Chen's hand shook as he processed the implications. Why haven't we detected them? He asked. The swarm moves slowly between systems, Thyros explained. They feed gradually, taking decades to fully consume a world. By the time other species detect their presence, it is too late to escape. They have consumed 17 civilizations in this sector alone, each time growing stronger. Belena's mind raced. But you've been fighting them. For 3,000 years, you've held them back. We have tried, Thyros said, his mental voice heavy with grief. My people dedicated our entire civilization to this war. We abandoned our art, our exploration, our growth. Generation after generation, we lived only to fight. We developed weapons that could wound the swarm, tactics that could slow their advance. But each victory cost us dearly. Through their mental link, the humans experienced flashes of the war. They saw vast battles in the void between stars, Zelani ships made of living crystal, engaging writhing shadows the size of moons. They witnessed the gradual retreat as the Zelani were overwhelmed by sheer numbers, falling back system by system, world by world. Your people sacrificed everything to protect species you had never even met, Elena said, awed by the scope of their dedication. It was our duty, Thyros replied simply. The strong must protect the weak. The knowledgeable must guard the innocent. We chose this burden willingly, hoping that other races would have time to grow and thrive. Commander Vale's tactical mind was already analyzing the situation. What can you tell us about their weaknesses? How can they be fought? Thyros showed them images of Zelani crystal weapons, devices that could disrupt the swarm's energy patterns and force them back into dormancy. Our technology is based on harmonic resonance. We strike at the frequencies that cause them pain, that make them retreat. But our numbers are too few now. The next assault will overwhelm our defenses. When? Elena asked, though she dreaded the answer. Soon. We detect their advanced scouts already probing our outer defenses. The main swarm will arrive within days. This will be our final battle. The choice that defines humanity. The human team spent hours learning about the Zelani and their ancient enemy. They discovered that the crystal beings had developed their civilization around principles of protection and nurture. They had been gardeners of the galaxy, helping younger species develop while shielding them from cosmic threats. Dr. Chen marveled at their biotechnology, their ability to grow ships and weapons from living crystal. Commander Vale studied their military tactics, noting how they used coordinated energy strikes to disrupt enemy formations. Elena tried to understand the weight of responsibility these beings had carried for millennia. As night fell on the crystal world, Elder Thyros led them to a vast observatory at the planet's peak. Here, massive crystal formations focused stellar energy into viewing arrays that could see across the galaxy. Through these devices, the humans saw their first glimpse of the Void Swarm. It was a sight that would haunt their dreams. Creatures of pure darkness moved between distant stars like infection spreading through a body. Worlds in their path had gone silent, their lights extinguished one by one. The swarm had left a trail of dead systems stretching back thousands of light years. Your people could still flee, Thyros said quietly. If humanity began evacuating now, you might reach the galaxy's outer rim before the swarm spreads that far. Some of your species might survive. Elena studied the tactical displays, calculating distances and timeframes. It would be possible, barely. They could abandon human space, leave behind their colonies and history, and run for the galactic frontier. Millions might die in the evacuation, but the species would survive. What about other civilizations in our region? She asked. The Tracheri are insectoid traders who have helped many species develop commerce. The Morphic Collective are peaceful shapeshifters who serve as diplomats between conflicting races. The Silicon Monks dedicate their lives to preserving knowledge. None of them have the technology to flee in time. The weight of the decision pressed down on Elena's shoulders. She thought of her daughters, playing in Earth's gardens under blue skies. She thought of the colonies humanity had built with such hope and effort. She thought of the billions of people living ordinary lives, unaware that extinction was racing toward them through the void. But she also thought of the Zelani, who had given everything to protect strangers. She thought of the other species who would die if humanity ran. She thought of what kind of people humans would become if they saved themselves by abandoning others. There has to be another way, Elena said finally. You've been fighting alone for 3,000 years. What if you weren't alone anymore? Thyros stared at her, his crystalline form brightening with something that might have been hope. Your species is too young, too small. You have perhaps 50 ships capable of interstellar combat. The swarm numbers in the thousands. But we're different from you, Elena insisted. We think differently, fight differently. Maybe that's what this war needs, something the swarm hasn't seen before. Commander Vale stepped forward. Captain, with respect, this would be suicide. We're talking about humanity's entire fleet against an enemy that's been winning for millennia. And if we run, we become the kind of species that saves itself while others die. Elena replied. Is that who we want to be? Dr. Chen looked up from his analysis of Zelani technology. Captain, I'm seeing something interesting here. Their crystal tech operates on harmonic principles that might be compatible with our quantum processors. If we could combine human computing power with Zelani energy manipulation, you think our technologies could merge? Thyros asked, sudden excitement in his mental voice. It's possible. Humans are chaotic thinkers. We adapt, improvise, find solutions through trial and error. Your people are precise, methodical. Together, we might create something neither species could achieve alone. Elena looked out at the stars, knowing that somewhere among them, the Void Swarm was preparing for its final assault. She thought of every space battle in human history, every time her species had faced impossible odds and somehow found a way through. Send a message to Earth, she commanded. Tell them what we found here. Tell them about the Zelani, about the swarm, about what's coming. And tell them that humanity has a choice to make. As the message raced toward human space at light speed, Elena Rodriguez stood beside an alien elder who had spent his entire life protecting strangers. In a few days, they would discover whether humanity was ready to stand beside the last guardians of the galaxy, or whether the longest war in galactic history would finally come to its tragic end. The choice would define not just humanity's future, but the very soul of their species. The Alliance of Hope. The divide that nearly doomed everything. The message from Captain Rodriguez reached Earth 3 weeks later, traveling at the speed of light across the vast distances of space. When the Human Colonial Council gathered to hear her report, the assembly hall erupted into chaos. Representatives from dozens of worlds shouted over each other, their voices creating a storm of fear and argument. "This is insanity," bellowed Councillor James Wright, his face red with rage. "Rodriguez wants us to commit species suicide for aliens we've never met. Our duty is to our own people." Admiral Maria Torres stood slowly at the military section of the chamber. At 65, she had served in the Colonial Defense Force for 4 decades and commanded respect even from her critics. Her weathered hands gripped the podium as she spoke. "Councillor Wright, these aliens have been dying to protect us for 3,000 years. While we were learning to make fire, they were holding back our extinction. The least we can do is stand with them now." The debate raged for hours. Half the council wanted to begin immediate evacuation of human space, abandoning their colonies to save what population they could. The other half, led by Admiral Torres, insisted that humanity's honor demanded they help the Zilani fight. Dr. Sarah Kim, Earth's leading xenobiologist, presented the technical analysis. The data Captain Rodriguez transmitted shows remarkable compatibility between our technologies. Human quantum processing combined with Zilani crystal resonance could create weapons and defenses neither species could develop alone. Could create, Wright emphasized, or could fail spectacularly while the Void Swarm wipes out humanity. He turned to address the full assembly. "We're talking about 50 ships against thousands of hostile entities. The mathematics are simple. This is suicide disguised as heroism." Admiral Torres slammed her hand on the podium. "The mathematics ignore human ingenuity. We've won impossible battles before. At Thermopylae, 300 Spartans held off a Persian army. At the Battle of Britain, outnumbered pilots saved their entire civilization. Humans don't win through superior numbers. We win through superior spirit." The vote was scheduled for the following day, but events moved faster than politics. Long-range sensors detected the first signs of void swarm activity at the edge of human space. Dead communications from the Kepler colony suggested the enemy had already begun their advance. The race against darkness. While politicians debated, Admiral Torres made the decision that would save or doom humanity. She activated Emergency Protocol 7, mobilizing every combat-capable ship in human space. Within hours, vessels began converging from across the colonies. The fleet that assembled was impressive by human standards, but pathetic compared to galactic powers. 53 ships of various classes, from massive dreadnoughts to nimble destroyers. Their crews numbered barely 8,000 souls, each one volunteering to face an enemy that had destroyed civilizations. Engineer Lisa Park worked frantically in the labs of the flagship UES Defiant, analyzing the Zilani technology that Dr. Chen had transmitted. What she discovered changed everything. "Admiral, this is incredible," she reported during the fleet's final briefing. "Zilani crystal technology doesn't just manipulate energy, it thinks. Their ships are partially alive, able to adapt and learn. If we can interface our AI systems with their crystal networks, we could create hybrid vessels," finished Dr. Chen via subspace communication from the Zilani homeworld. "Ships that combine human tactical flexibility with Zilani harmonic weapons. But we need to integrate the technologies before the swarm arrives." Admiral Torres studied the tactical displays. The Void Swarm was moving faster than expected, drawn by the energy signatures of active civilizations. They had perhaps days before the main force reached Zilani space. "Begin integration immediately," she ordered. "Every ship that can be modified gets Zilani crystal cores. We're going to give these shadow creatures something they've never faced. Human unpredictability enhanced by alien technology. Brothers in arms across the stars." Back on the Zilani homeworld, Captain Rodriguez worked alongside Elder Thyros to coordinate the defense. The remaining Zilani had gathered their surviving ships. ancient crystal vessels that glowed with inner fire. They were beautiful but showed the wear of endless conflict. "Your people puzzle us," admitted Sentinel Kithara, a young Zilani warrior who had never known peace. "You fight with such passion, such chaos. We plan each movement carefully, considering all possibilities. You seem to make decisions based on instinct." Commander Vale laughed as she studied Zilani tactical doctrine. "That's because instinct keeps us alive. When everything goes wrong, when all the plans fail, humans improvise. We find solutions in chaos that logic can't reach." Dr. Chen made another breakthrough while studying Zilani biology. "Captain, I think I understand why their technology is compatible with ours. Both our species evolved from social organisms that rely on cooperation. Humans through tribalism and pack hunting. Zilani through crystalline matrices that share information. We're natural allies at a fundamental level." The insight proved crucial as teams worked to merge human and Zilani systems. Human creativity found ways to enhance Zilani precision, while Zilani harmony stabilized human innovation. Ships that had been purely mechanical became living entities, their crews forming symbiotic bonds with crystalline consciousnesses. Fighter pilot Marcus Webb described the sensation. "It's like having a co-pilot in your mind. The ship knows what I'm thinking before I do. When I need more power, the crystals respond instantly. When I'm in danger, the ship shields me before I even see the threat." The enemy revealed. The Void Swarm arrived 2 days early, emerging from hyperspace like a plague of shadows. The human fleet's sensors struggled to process what they were seeing. The entities defied conventional physics, existing partially in normal space and partially in dimensions humans couldn't perceive. Elder Thyros shared his people's knowledge through the mental link that now connected all allied forces. They are parasites from the space between realities. They feed on life energy, growing stronger with each world they consume. Physical weapons pass through them unless properly attuned. Admiral Torres watched the tactical display as thousands of shadow entities swarmed toward the Zilani homeworld. Some were small as fighters, others large as capital ships. At their center moved something enormous, a presence so malevolent it made hardened soldiers weep. "That is the Swarm Queen," Thyros explained. "She has existed since the Swarm's creation, growing more powerful with each civilization destroyed. She remembers every battle, every tactic used against her forces. She learns and adapts. Then we'll have to teach her something new." Admiral Torres replied grimly. "The battle for everything." The combined fleet took position around the Zilani homeworld. Human ships integrated with their Zilani counterparts in formations that had never been tested in combat. As the Void Swarm approached, both species prepared for the battle that would determine the fate of their civilizations. The first engagement began at the system's edge, where human destroyers enhanced with crystal weapons met swarm scouts. The results were immediately apparent. The hybrid weapons hurt the shadow entities in ways they hadn't experienced in millennia. Void creatures that had shrugged off pure energy attacks recoiled from harmonically tuned quantum strikes. "It's working," reported Captain Martinez from his destroyer. "The crystal-enhanced torpedoes are actually damaging them. They're not adapting as quickly as usual." But the Swarm Queen learned fast. She began directing her forces in new patterns, probing for weaknesses in the Allied defense. Human tactical doctrine called for aggressive strikes, while Zilani strategy emphasized coordinated defense. The hybrid approach confused both allies and enemies. Commander Vale found herself coordinating with Zilani tacticians through their mental link, human intuition guiding crystalline precision. "They're trying to flank us through the asteroid field. If we modify our formation." "I see it," responded War Singer Milov, a Zilani commander. "Your chaos patterns will work here. We adapt our harmony to support your improvisation." The battle raged across the system as shadow and light clashed in the void. Human pilots discovered that their unpredictable flying styles confused swarm entities accustomed to Zilani precision. Zilani crystal ships provided the power and coordination that human tactics had always lacked. The sacrifice that changed everything. As the battle reached its climax, the Swarm Queen herself entered the fray. Her presence drained life from nearby ships, human and Zilani alike. Crews aged years in seconds, their life force feeding the ancient parasite. The Allied fleet began to falter as their strongest vessels were overwhelmed. Captain Rodriguez, still on the Zilani homeworld, watched the battle through crystal viewing arrays. She could see the human fleet dying, their sacrifice buying time for a world they had never known existed. Elder Thyros stood beside her, his crystalline form dimming as he channeled power to his remaining ships. "There is one possibility," Thyros said quietly. "If we could focus the planet's entire crystal network through a single harmonic pulse, we might be able to whelm the Queen enough to drive her back. But the energy required would drain our world's life force. My people would die." Rodriguez stared at the ancient being who had spent his entire existence protecting others. "What about the modified plan Dr. Chen proposed? Using human quantum cores to amplify the pulse while distributing the energy load." "It might work," Thyros admitted. "But someone would need to remain here to coordinate the pulse while the planet's defenses fail. They would not survive the Queen's retaliation." The choice was clear. Rodriguez could evacuate with the human landing team, or she could stay and help coordinate humanity's greatest gamble. She thought of her daughters back on Earth, safe because of Zilani's sacrifice. She thought of the crews dying in space to protect strangers. "I'll stay," she said simply. Dr. Chen and Commander Vale protested, but Rodriguez had made her decision. "Get back to the fleet. Help them understand what we're doing. Make sure this sacrifice counts." The light that conquered shadow. As the final phase of the battle began, human and Zilani forces coordinated the most desperate plan in galactic history. Every quantum core in the human fleet synchronized with the Zilani homeworld's crystal network. Captain Rodriguez and Elder Thyros stood at the planet's core, their minds linked with every warrior in space. "Now," Rodriguez whispered. The planet blazed with light as 3,000 years of stored energy released in a single harmonic pulse. The beam struck the Swarm Queen at the moment she prepared to deliver her killing blow. Channeled through hybrid technology that had never existed before, the ancient parasite shrieked across dimensions as power that combined human innovation with Zilani wisdom tore through her defenses. For the first time in millennia, the Swarm Queen felt pain. Real, lasting damage that she couldn't simply regenerate. Her scream of agony echoed across the system as her forces recoiled in confusion. But the victory came at a cost. The energy pulse drained the Zilani homeworld, its crystal cities going dark one by one. Elder Thyros collapsed, his life force spent in the final gambit. Throughout the system, Zilani ships lost power as their crews gave everything they had to wound their ancient enemy. Admiral Torres seized the moment. "All ships, concentrated fire on the Queen. She's vulnerable." The human fleet, their weapons still powered by quantum cores, pressed their attack. Torpedoes enhanced with fading crystal technology struck the wounded Queen, each hit driving her back toward the void between stars. Faced with an enemy she couldn't quickly adapt to, suffering wounds that wouldn't heal, the Swarm Queen made the choice that saved the galaxy. She retreated. The dawn of a new era. The Void Swarm disappeared into hyperspace, following their wounded queen back to whatever dimension had spawned them. They would return someday, perhaps in centuries or millennia. But for now, the galaxy was safe. Captain Rodriguez survived the energy pulse, though barely. Elder Thyros died in her arms, his final thoughts filled with gratitude for the young species that had chosen sacrifice over safety. Of the 300 remaining Zilani, only 50 survived the final battle. But those 50 would not be alone. Admiral Torres committed humanity to a new role as protectors of the galaxy, working alongside the surviving Zilani to guard against future threats. The hybrid technology developed during the battle became the foundation for a new civilization that valued both order and chaos, precision and creativity. Dr. Chen established the first joint research stations where human scientists worked with Zilani crystalsmiths to develop defenses against dimensional parasites. Commander Vale founded the Galactic Defense Corps, training officers from dozens of species in the hybrid tactics that had defeated an ancient enemy. Years later, as humanity spread across the stars in partnership with their crystal allies, children would learn the story of the last battle. They would hear how two different species, facing extinction, chose to stand together rather than apart. They would understand that true strength comes not from being the biggest or the strongest, but from being willing to fight for others. The Zilani had protected the galaxy for 50,000 years, sacrificing their civilization to shield strangers from darkness. When their strength finally failed, humanity stepped forward to carry that burden. Together, they had proven that hope could triumph over despair, that unity could overcome any enemy. In the end, that was humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy. Not their technology or their weapons, but their refusal to abandon others in need. They had looked into the abyss and chosen to be the light that held it back. The war against the Void Swarm was won not through superior firepower, but through the simple human truth that no one should have to fight alone. It was a lesson that would echo through the stars for generations to come, carried by species that learned to stand together against the darkness between worlds. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, the combined fleets of humanity and their alien allies continued their watch, ready to face whatever threats might emerge from the void. They were no longer separate species fighting for survival, but guardians united in their commitment to protect all life in the galaxy. The age of isolation was over. The age of unity had begun.